Hello, I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory. This is my 100-hour world tour. I thought that this would be a good time to show off a bunch of the world that just doesn't get shown in the load balance videos. It's far from a finished world, but I tried to tidy it up a little. So here we are at the hub, which I've got my trophies on display. So in 100 hours, I've managed to unlock everything in the awesome shop, and I've bought the 3 cheapest of the trophies, but I've got a stand for all of them. So the goal is to fill all of these with one of each of the different trophies. So eventually that golden nut will be mine. So here is our storage. So we can see the buses coming in from either side. So we've got about half of the products coming in on this side, actually probably a little bit more. And then here's the other side. And this is why I love using Mark 1 belts. I can just sit here and watch this. It's mesmerizing to me. But anyways, so let me show you inside the storage. So obviously from the hub we can come in here. So I've got a little corridor. So right here we can dump our trash. We've got the MAM. We've got an awesome sink so I can print out my coupons, and there's the awesome shop. And then on the other side we've got our crafting bench, the equipment workshop, some storage for, random things like the food and whatnot. And then we've got 2 sets of stairs. So the bottom one takes us to the back end of all of the storage. So this is where the smart splitters are. And we can kind of see if it's stopped right here, that means that all of the storage is full. I think just about everything. It's nice and full. So the other set of stairs lead to nothing currently. It's a big open space. I haven't closed it off either. So this is going to be the logistics for the future project of completely filling my roof with drones. So this is the inside. So I went ahead and used the large billboards, and I made this a blueprint so that I could clip it into the foundation so it's a little bit more flush. And I just used the default fix-it primary color for it. But here we have all of our storage. So I still need to add some more signs. I would like to have a little bit more information. But for now, I just did the trick with the catwalk crossings. There's a 1 meter gap so that when you drop down the conveyor belt, it just mounts right evenly with the floor. Pretty sure I got that from Kibitz. So shout out to him. So lots of extra storage. I haven't used it all yet, but it's there for eventual. I think I have probably more than I need, but it's easier than having to try to add it on later. So that's the storage. But if we come back to the other end, I kind of forgot to show this part off. Underneath the hub is a stack of, I believe this is only 90 of the power storage of the batteries. So I just wanted to have some. It's not a crazy amount, but it's a good amount. And I think I was messing around with the power grid so that I could get all the numbers exactly the same. And if you're doing a load balance challenge like this and you run into everything's on, but for some reason the consumption and max consumption aren't lining up, if you kill the power and then turn it back on, it'll fix the numbers. So I had to turn the batteries off so I could cut off power to all of the factories and then turn them back on, and then that way it'll kind of reset the numbers. I think there's an issue with turning on machines that are either under or overclocked before they ever power on, and the numbers just don't quite adjust or something. But anyways, this is underneath all of the storage. So this is where I send everything to get sunk, and this is where I've done all of my temporary factories. So when I needed the space elevator parts, I just set up some containers. I threw what I needed in there, and then I just placed down, whatever machines I needed to crank out enough to get some unlocks and whatnot. So this area has been hugely helpful. The reason there's railings is I brought a doggo in here, but he escapes every time I bring him in here. So I just kind of gave up, but then never deleted those. So now I have a pet bird apparently. So I just went ahead and labeled everything, even though most of the time it's running and you can see it. But if it's filling up the containers, it's kind of nice to know what's supposed to be on which belt. And then that way I can when I add another item, I can quickly add everything up, make sure that it all fits on, one belt, so that I can use as few sinks as possible, because this is all hidden away anyways. I guess I should probably combine those. But this is the trash that's connected to that storage unit. So that's my logistics area underneath there. One of the biggest additions to the world is trains. So I have built out a simple train network so far. So we've got kind of one train housing right here. It's got enough spots for 4 different train stations. So hopefully that'll be enough for now. It's basically just bringing things back to storage. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be more than enough. And so I tried to space things out enough, because the one thing I've learned is I rarely give trains enough space. Once they start getting longer, then you need to have, the space to accommodate them, longer blocks, longer spots where it can wait and not hold up traffic and whatnot. So I've tried to use both roundabouts and kind of underpasses, instead of using direct, like a 4-way junction sort of a thing. I'm trying to have paths across the least, and hopefully this will be able to keep traffic down to a minimum. But it's definitely a work in progress. I am no expert in trains, although I did spend quite a bit of time, and I am pretty proud of this. I did figure out, and shout out to Pobcac on Twitch, and I'm sure he has a YouTube as well, but I learned it from his streams, and I figured out a way to make roundabouts into blueprints. So being able to place this where I need it and not have to drag out all of the foundations and then delete them and then do all of that is really, really nice. So you do still have to place all of the train tracks down, but that's not so bad. The other really nice thing I was able to do is also not just the small roundabout, but I figured out how to do both, because once you can do one, you can do both. It just takes a lot longer to make the big one. But now I have both large and small roundabouts blueprinted, which makes everything so much easier. Basically, all of this is blueprints. So they're all really simple. It's pretty much just a 4-meter foundation, 2-meter foundation, a wall on the side, and then I just made a whole bunch of different variations, whether it's just a single track for these instances, or at a 2-meter incline or decline, I guess, depending on which way. I think I freehand some of these. But yeah, for the most part, I did all of it, even the curves and stuff. I just blueprinted these. So really laying all of the tracks and everything has been super easy. Blueprints are amazing. I know trains obviously carry power, but there is a reason why I decided to place these. So this helps get the actual power tower out of the way, because if I set this directly on here, the feet overhang and then the train clips into it, and I hated that. But now trains just fit right in here. That's great. I love the way it looks. So these right here are the main power. This is what all of the factories are connected to. So with train stations, the freight platforms only get turned on when they're in use, and so it's really impossible to get these both the same all the time. So the way I went about that is I have 2 power grids. So this is my very first power station, and for some reason I never made a video on it, and I don't really know why now that I'm thinking about it, because it's load balanced like everything else in the save. And it's a nice, real easy setup. So they're double overclocked. And then we've just got a water extractor overclocked to 180 that's feeding 2 machines, and load balance kind of like everything else. And then I've got an extra 100 power storage right here for this network. But in all, as you can see, it's a much smaller network. We've only got 4,800, but this one has the consumption that goes up and down, because what I wanted is a second power grid just for the trains and anything else where it might fluctuate. So all of the sinks below, oh hey little guy, oh good, Mycelia. So all of the sinks that are underneath the storage, because if I pull a bunch of items out, those sinks might start turning on or off, and then it might I might think that there's something wrong with my main power grid. So things like that, I just have on my coal power. And eventually I'll probably add geothermal to this because I really won't look at that power grid that much. And hopefully that'll be enough. So that's the train network right now. The train just goes out to, oh, can't quite see. It goes out to about there and just stops because eventually I'll use that oil. So I just started kind of running it out in that direction. But right now there's no train station or end destination over there. So over here in the grassy fields, this is obviously where I got started. So a lot of our beginning factories are over here that are probably still all using very low speed belts for everything. So we've got our reinforced iron plates over here. I don't even remember which one's which anymore. We've got our modular frames over here. And every single one of these should be basically its own episode in this playlist. So if you're curious about how I built any of these, go check out those videos. So this was the very, very first building doing copper sheets. The first video I made was this one right here because it was the simplest. So I'm glad it's still kicking. And that's the great thing is once you get these up and running, they're basically just good to go. And you can just set it and forget it essentially. So this is the very last bits of my very first starter factory that I have just yet to rip up. So the funny thing is these biomass burners aren't connected to anything. They're actually just all connected to each other right now. I just haven't deleted them. I don't know why. This is just a whole lot of biomass. So I kind of went a little nuts on deforesting the entire grassy fields when I started. Really, I had like a stream up for an hour or two, and I just kind of zoned out and deforested the entire thing when I was first starting this playthrough. And yeah, so that's I'm set on that for a while. Let's see, and here's our heavy modular frames. Here is our 270 a minute concrete, which I highly recommend. Just whatever you think is enough concrete, just do more. Because running out of concrete is always such a bummer. So even though I only have 3 storage things, it fills up quick. And now we're just headed out to the blue crater. Alright, so here we are at the blue crater. So our first buildings was that one right there in the middle. When I first came out here, started making the steel products. So that is pretty much, I think, just steel beams, pipes, and encased industrial beams. And then hidden back here is where I'm making the motors. And then that two-tone building is one of the most recent videos, and that's doing all of my electronics, from AI limiters to computers and supercomputers. And then way out there, well, that tower specifically is doing the silica for all of those electronics, but then that one has the refineries that's doing pure quartz, and it's doing the crystal oscillators. So we've also got our huge power, so 18 gigawatts of diluted packaged fuel. So 48 fuel gens that are all overclocked to 250. And then we use that same setup, making the diluted package fuel, and then use that to make plastic and rubber. So this bottom floor is doing rubber, top floor is doing plastic. So doing, I think it's 780 plastic and 810 rubber. I love this setup. I was really happy with the way it came out and how quickly it all booted up using the smart splitter and everything. Really happy. So I've still got some extra that we're sinking, but usually with plastic, rubber, and aluminum, I like to just make a good amount extra just so I have it for the future projects instead of making that all on demand like I do with all of the other parts that are coming from normal mines. So I've got the train stations, or the room for the train stations. I haven't set them up because I don't know what they're doing or where they're going, but that's how I'll be able to get the plastic and the rubber across the world. And now let's head out to the swamp. Okay, here we are at the north end of the swamp. I think this gives a pretty good shot of the whole thing. So right here we have the bauxite node, the one that has just a, I think, like a push-pull train system. So that's the only thing on that track. So it's just bringing, well, the one normal and one impure node over that train station so that we can turn that into alumina solution and then into ingots. We're using the crude oil well over here to turn that into heavy oil residue and petroleum coke. And that petroleum coke's just headed over here. And we'll just fly over this because this is the most recent video. So if you want to see how to turn 1500 bauxite into 1500 ingots. I took all of the bauxite from the swamp and turning it all into ingots out here. So if we just get far enough away, then you don't get the weird swamp effect and you kind of can see some color. And then here is our train station to move that stuff around. And unfortunately, that's how far I've gotten with the train tracks. So plenty of space to go. There are tons more resources for me to exploit and turn into all sorts of cool stuff. I want to take a second to thank everyone that has supported the channel. The amount of views the load balance videos have been getting is a very pleasant surprise and more than I could ask for. Thank you to everyone who has liked, commented, and subscribed. Everyone has been so kind and the feedback has been tremendously helpful. So again, thank you. A couple people have expressed interest in the blueprints I use. I'm happy to share them with all of you. I'm not sure what the best way to go about this is, however. I know a popular way is having them on a Discord server, but I don't think I'm ready to host a server and manage that. I've thought about putting them on a Google Drive and having them available there, but I still need to look into it. Please let me know if there's another, more preferable method of sharing them all for free. And again, thanks for watching.